Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're tackling ISO/IEC 4201-2023 compliance. Now, I know when most people hear the word compliance, they immediately picture, a static checklist, like some dusty binder sitting on a shelf that you only really panic about right before an audit. But listen, with artificial intelligence, that approach is an absolute recipe for disaster. Why? Because AI is dynamic. It's constantly updating and shifting based on new inputs. So your compliance framework has to be just as dynamic. We're going to look at compliance not as a static checklist, but as a living, breathing engine of organizational excellence. So here's the million-dollar question. How do you keep an AI management system from going stale? I mean, in a landscape where the tech literally evolves by the minute, how do you prevent model drift? You know, that thing where your AI's predictive power just decays simply because the real world changed around it. Or how do you stop your security protocols from getting totally stagnant? If your AI system is constantly learning, dynamically and making these probabilistic decisions, your management of that system absolutely cannot be frozen in time. It desperately needs a mechanism to continually adapt.
All right, let's dive into this. We're going to build out our compliance engine today in 4 quick stages. 1. Culture of continuous improvement. 2. Driving the PDCA cycle. 3. Implementing CAPA strategies. And finally, 4. Documenting audit improvements.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Culture of Continuous Improvement. This is basically the high-octane fuel that's absolutely essential for our compliance engine to even run. The standard formally defines continuous improvement as an ongoing process of assessment and adjustment to enhance the organization's ability to meet strategic objectives. Let's really look at those words. Ongoing, assessment, adjustment. It's a cyclical mindset, right? This isn't just a one-and-done event. It's this core idea that your whole organization is continually making tiny incremental adjustments to hit those strategic goals. And the really important part here is that a culture like this completely relies on collective employee involvement. From top management all the way down to the operational teams, everyone needs to be hunting for inefficiencies and pitching solutions. Think about it. In AI, your data annotators or your prompt engineers, they are just as likely to spot an emerging risk as the folks in the C-suite. Everyone plays a part. But hey, while everyone is involved, the tone absolutely has to be set at the top. The standard actually states, top management is responsible for ensuring that continuous improvement efforts align with the organization's strategic objectives. So true culture, it starts with leadership, period. It's completely on them to provide the vision, build that culture of accountability, and, crucially, allocate the actual resources to make it happen. I'm talking budget, personnel, the right tools. We all know that unfunded mandates just don't work. If leadership isn't ponying up the time and the budget, our engine has no fuel, and continuous improvement just becomes another empty corporate buzzword.
Okay, so once leadership sets that tone, the culture naturally translates into risk-based thinking. You can think of this as the early warning radar for your compliance engine. The standard stresses that we have to identify potential risks proactively, evaluate their impact and likelihood, and then prevent those problems before they even arrive. And in the world of AI, this is absolutely make or break. By using risk-based thinking, you're detecting issues, say a sudden dip in model accuracy, or maybe a weird vulnerability to prompt injection attacks, way before they cause a catastrophic system failure or take down your operations. You're not just running around putting out fires, you're literally fireproofing the building before you even move the furniture in.
Moving right along to Section 2, Driving the PDCA cycle. This is where we take all that abstract culture and turn it into systematic, mechanical action. We're building the engine block now.
Now, the PDCA cycle, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act, is honestly one of the most powerful tools inside ISO IEC 42001-2023. Let's walk through this 4-step rhythm. First, in the plan phase, you identify your objectives and data. Like maybe you're setting specific accuracy and latency thresholds for a brand new language model. Second, you implement the changes. You tune the parameters or upgrade your data pipelines. Third, you check. This is where you evaluate effectiveness by monitoring the performance data, like running automated red teaming tests to see if your updates actually held up. And finally, you act. You take corrective or preventative action to refine those operational guardrails even further. And this whole cycle brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of the standard. The PDCA cycle is a continuous, iterative process that drives systematic improvements over time. The second you finish the act phase, you feed those exact results right back into the plan phase for your next round of improvements. The engine literally never stops turning. It's this relentless, systematic drive toward excellence that just compounds day after day.
So what exactly goes down during that act phase? Well, that brings us to Section 3,
implementing CAPA strategies. These are your essential maintenance and fine-tuning tools. Now, CAPA stands for Corrective and Preventive Actions, and we really need to contrast them because the standard draws a very sharp line here. Corrective actions are all about fixing an existing nonconformity and eliminating its root cause. So, for example, if an internal financial forecasting AI suddenly starts hallucinating totally bogus revenue projections because of a corrupted data feed, your corrective action is pulling that bad data, retraining the model, and fixing the immediate breach. Preventative actions, on the flip side, are about anticipating future problems before they ever occur. That might look like implementing a brand new automated data validation tool for all future inputs just to guarantee that specific hallucination failure never ever happens again. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that you cannot implement a proper corrective action without doing a root cause analysis first. You really have to know exactly why the machine broke down. The standard demands that you dig deep, identify why the noncompliance occurred, maybe use a method like the 5 whys, where you literally just ask why 5 times until you hit the fundamental process failure, not just the surface symptom. Once you nail down that root cause, you've got to detail exact action steps, assign responsible parties, and define clear timelines. You aren't just slapping a Band-Aid on the symptoms, you are getting in there and permanently fixing the machine. And that brings us perfectly to our final section, Section 4, Documenting Audit Improvements. We're looking at this from the lead auditor's perspective now, focusing on maintaining the actual diagnostic log of our engine. You know, there's an old auditor's rule that goes, if it isn't documented, it's just a rumor. And it's so true. Documenting improvements provides clear, verifiable evidence that your security practices are actually maintained in line with ISO 42001:2023. It takes all those abstract cultural improvements and PDCA cycles we just talked about and transforms them into traceable, auditable proof of your compliance engine's health. It literally shows an auditor exactly what was done, how it was done, by whom, with what evidence, and exactly why. It's actually fascinating how directly the standards requirements map to the very specific actions a lead auditor is looking for. Let's look at traceability. An auditor doesn't just want to take your word for it. They want to see that you've officially logged the root cause analysis, complete with the investigation forms. When it comes to resource allocation, they're checking to see if you actually documented the assigned budget and personnel to fix the issue. And for the timeline, they want to track clear action deadlines to ensure the improvement didn't just sit in a backlog forever, but was actually implemented promptly. Now, to make sure this diagnostic log really holds up during an ISO audit, there are some core documentation best practices you've got to follow. First up, clarity. There can be absolutely zero ambiguity about the improvements made. Next, absolute accuracy regarding who did what and when. Third, consistent formatting across every different area of your AI management system. Fourth, traceability of long-term trends. You want to prove that your engine is actually getting more efficient over time, right? And lastly, everything must be evidence-based. An auditor cannot audit a feeling. You need the meeting notes, the version control logs, the completed checklists to back up every single claim. Which leaves us with this final thought for today. When you look at your own organization's compliance logs, I want you to ask yourself, is your documentation simply recording the past, or is it actively engineering a better future? Because by fully embracing the PDCA cycle, doing rigorous root cause analysis, and keeping transparent documentation, you aren't just checking a box to pass an ISO audit. No way. You're building a highly adaptable, incredibly resilient AI management system that is literally designed for ongoing excellence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, I highly encourage you to take this framework and start tuning up your own continuous improvement engine today.